For questions, because that's always the fun part, because none of that's rehearsed, and I'm not the amazing Karnak, so I don't know what you're thinking. But what a pleasure and honor it is to be with you all. And someone back there said, hey Colonel, you're kind of like early. I mean, we understand, military, you guys like to be early, and early is on time, one time is late, you don't even show up. But the reason why I came here at 1800 hours, that's 6 p.m. for you Air Force types. But, hey, I love it. It's because I want to support the team. One of the critical things is that we have got to get out there, we've got to get engaged, and David talked about it. We've got to run in city council, we've got to run in school board, we've got to run in water management districts. We have to be challenging people for every elected office that is out there. Because that's so important, because if not, then we're ceding over your incredible God-given right for righteous governance, constitutional conservative governance. And when you come together in these forums, it's so important that you leave. Number one, you are better informed. You are better educated on the issues, and you are able to go out and be activated. The problem that we have had on our side so often is that we have not been better informed. We have not been better educated. And we go out there and we try to present ourselves on this ideological battlefield because we are on an ideological battlefield. And we're not prepared. In Ephesians chapter 6, 10 through 18 talks about the full armor of God. We go out there and we don't have anything. We don't have a helmet, we don't have a sword, we don't have nothing. That's why I want you, when you come together, you've got to start thinking, who's your battle buddy? Nobody fights on the battlefield by themselves. They got a foxhole buddy, they got a battle buddy. Who's your battle buddy? It's going to make sure that you're squared away, that you're sharp, you understand these issues. Because in the Bible, in Proverbs, it says iron sharpens iron. So who's the person that you have that's helping you stay sharp? As we get ready to go into the most critical election cycle that the United States of America has ever seen. I know people say, that's a little overtop, hyperbole, whatever. People say that all the time. This is serious business. I want you to think about something. Voter registration for the primary ends in 20 days. Mm-hmm. On the 31st of January. It was so funny. I was sitting back there, and a young lady looked over to me and said, I was down there at a wedding with my family, and my sister turned over to me and said, I didn't know that there was a governor's race going on. Don't laugh, because this is serious business. You're going to have people that the weekend before March the 1st are going to say, there's an election. Who should I vote for? Mm-hmm. But see, you shouldn't be waiting until the weekend before the election. Early voting starts in 34 days, the 14th of February. And so right now, you need to be out there setting the conditions. Because before you launch into a battle, guess what you do? You prepare that battlefield. That's what we're calling our brothers in the Air Force. They drop them really big bombs on the bad guys and everything. And then you launch your attack. And so right now, you need to be setting those conditions. And let me tell you something. How many people here born-again believers, Christians? Yeah. Amen. How many people here have ever heard of the website My Faith Votes? Yep. Jason Yates. Mm-hmm. Yep. Go to that website, My Faith Votes, and you will see some statistics that will absolutely chill you if you're a born-again Christian. Mm-hmm. On average, in a presidential election cycle, 25 million Christians don't vote across the country. On average, in a non-presidential election cycle, that number jumps up to 65 million. Wow. Is this a presidential or non-presidential election cycle?
Right.
So when you go to church this Sunday, when you sit in that pew, I want you to turn to the left, turn to the right, just ask some simple questions. You registered to vote. Because you will find out that a lot of born-again believers are not. It ain't time for us to sit around and wait for the rapture to come back. Because I'm not going to let the progressive socialists overtake this incredible country that God blessed us with while I wait for him to come back. Because he's going to come back and say, yo, Wes, what were you doing? He said, I don't know you. So I need you to stand up. I need you to fight. There's a lot of talk from some people talking about threats to democracy. I mean, you heard that last week on the 6th of January, Insurrection Day. Let me tell you something. That was the crappiest insurrection I've ever seen. I mean, that's like, me turning over to you and saying, I want you to attack that hill, but leave your weapons here. That ain't going to be a successful attack. But what we have to understand is the other side is taking the narrative. You know, I was pretty happy last night because I was born and raised in Georgia, and Georgia beat Alabama. It was a long time coming. But then today I wasn't so happy. Because I saw the two biggest threats to democracy in the United States of America get off a jet in the place of my birth, Atlanta, Georgia. You know, former Supreme Court Justice Louis Brandeis once said that states are the laboratories of democracy. But if you listen to the words that were spoken today, it was everything about undermining the representative democracy that we have in America. If you undermine the representative democracy that we have in America, therefore you're undermining the longest running constitutional republic that the world has ever known. And that's what Joe Biden was talking about. And who is at the front line? Who is the tip of the spear of what is happening in the United States of America right now? We are. The Lone Star State. The great state of Texas. The left will never be able to control the United States of America until they control Texas. But sadly, they are using Texas as a funnel, as a means to an end to undermine our great nation. Because nothing that is happening right now is by happenstance. Nothing that is happening right now is by coincidence. Every single bit of this is purposeful and intentional. In the United States Constitution, in Article 4, Section 4, which is called the Guarantee Clause, there are two things that the federal government is supposed to guarantee to every state in the Union. What's the first thing? A Republican form of government. Not a Republican Party, but a Republican form of government, because America is a constitutional republic. And what does a Republican form of government mean? It means that the individual, their rights, their freedoms, their liberty, their sovereign, and yes, you are sovereign. You're sovereign. You're sovereign. You're sovereign. Why? Because your inalienable rights come from a sovereign God. They do not come from man. But the individual and all of those things, all of those qualities, is supreme over the institution of government. That's what it means to be in a Republican form of government. The second thing about a Republican form of government is the rule of law. And when we see people with all of the unconstitutional actions that's coming down out of this administration, when you have someone that's the resident of the White House, that's how I kind of refer to him, and he stands up and he says that no amendment to the Constitution is absolute. So which one? You just violated your oath. When you stand up and you say that I, as the president, are mandating to you what has to go into your body, show me the Constitution, sir, where you can make that decision to decide what goes into my body. You don't have that constitutional right. But if we're not careful, we don't understand what it means to live under a Republican form of government, all y'all, all of us, we tend to believe that mandates, edicts, orders, and decrees equal law. Now, some of y'all might remember that little ABC thing that came on Saturday mornings where you sit around eating Frosted Flakes and Rice Krispies. Some of y'all make Fruit Loops, maybe. But it's called Schoolhouse Rock. Schoolhouse Rock taught us about how you have a bill and how a bill becomes law. See, we're forgetting all of that. And we're forgetting that even in the state of Texas. Benjamin Franklin once said that those who would surrender essential liberty for temporary security in the end will deserve neither liberty nor security. So how is it that you allow someone from on high to say and declare who or what is essential in the state of Texas? That you're not essential. That you have to be relegated to your home even though you're healthy. Your business is not essential, but that other business over there is essential. We've got to understand and get back to realizing what civics truly is. And the second thing that the federal government is supposed to guarantee to every state in the union is to protect every state in the union from invasion. It's 2.5 to 2.6 million that entered in this country legally in 1 year, a record number. The 2 million number are just those that we accounted for, apprehended. Apprehension does not mean deportation. There's another 5, 6, maybe even 700,000 that are the getaways that we have no account for. We don't know where they are, and they all came into the United States of America by way of Texas. During the Christmas holiday season, 6 airplanes took off out of the state of Texas, and they landed in Wilkes-Barre, Scranton, Pennsylvania airport with illegal immigrants. You know what happened in Westchester County, New York? Illegal immigrant minors landing there. You know what has been landing in Tennessee, middle of the night. What's been landing in Florida, middle of the night. Where have all those planes taken off from? Right here in the Lone Star State. January is National Slavery and Human Trafficking Month. Texas is the #1 state in the United States of America for human sex trafficking. Houston and Dallas are the top 2 cities in the United States of America for sex trafficking. Last year, America had a record number of drug overdoses. Over 100,000 Americans died because of drug overdoses. Mainly fentanyl. Fentanyl that comes across the border, right here through Texas, distributed out through our state, across the United States of America. The ingredients come from China, and it's manufactured by the transnational narco-criminal terrorist organizations that I don't refer to as cartels. They're not a business organization, they're a terrorist organization. That's what we need to declare. We have a government that's aiding and abetting human trafficking. They're giving federal grant money to Catholic Charities, Lutheran Ministries, and another organization called Endeavor, 501c3, not-for-profit organizations that are taking illegals from the Border Patrol, giving them packets with a bus ticket or a plane ticket, $1,300 to $1,400 of taxpayer money, and then they're dispersed all throughout the country.
That's right.
And oh, by the way, you're told to get a shot in the arm, they're not told to get a shot in the arm. But yet we're not doing anything to stop it here. All we have to do in the state of Texas is revoke the licenses of these 501c3 organizations.
Right.
They have to apply.
That's right.
You are therefore aiding and abetting human trafficking. We're going to make that a felony offense. Your butt's going to go to jail. That's the message you have to send. Why? Because the most important entity in the constitutional republic is the state. Mm-hmm. The Declaration of Independence said free and independent states created in the United States of America. These United States of America. Plural, not singular. The Constitution of the United States of America, your first 10 rights, called the Bill of Rights. 10th Amendment says all of those powers not delegated to the federal government or reserved to the states and to the people. All you got to do is read Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution, and it lays out what the primary duties of the federal government are. It ain't a primary duty of the federal government to come down and take over our elections. But that's exactly what President Biden said today. Why do you think that's so important? Why do you think 2.5 to 2.6 million people have come into the United States of America illegally? What's the population of Dallas, Texas? 1.7 million. We just brought in the population of Dallas, Texas, and probably the entire Dallas County illegally into the United States of America. And if you don't think that illegals will be voted somehow by hook or crook in this election cycle, look at what Bill de Blasio did in New York on his way out. Mm-hmm. And even the guy who said he was going to be more moderate, Eric Adams, the new mayor, he said, yeah, it's okay. We're going to continue to allow illegals to vote in New York City elections. Something that they're already doing in municipalities out in California. H.R. 1, which is what Joe Biden wants the filibuster to be ended for, so that they can get it passed in the Senate, because it's already passed in the United States House of Representatives. That's why these congressional candidates are so important. Because we need to make sure that H.R. 1 or something along those lines doesn't get passed. And what does H.R. 1 say? No picture ID to vote in the United States of America. No voter registration roll review in the United States of America. Unsolicited mail-in ballots will be the standard how we vote in the United States of America. You don't have polling locations. You just sit back and wait for some county clerk or whatever to mail out a ballot. Online voter registration, same-day voting, same-day voter registration, same-day voting, and illegals get to vote according to H.R. 1. That's what they want to end the filibuster to get passed through on a simple majority. This is tyranny. The Build Back Better plan. Those 2.5, 2.6 million. What's in that Build Back Better plan? Amnesty for all illegal immigrants in the United States of America. So put another 10 million on top of the 2.5 to 2.6 million, what you got. This, ladies and gentlemen, is the greatest threat to our democracy. And we need to have men and women of courage and conviction and character that will stand up and push back against the progressive socialist left. These Marxists, these socialists, these communists, these statists. Bill Clinton, in his first midterm presidential election cycle, lost 53 congressional seats. Contract with America, Newt Gingrich came in. Barack Obama, in his first midterm election cycle, 2010, lost 63 congressional seats. There are estimates that the Democrats can lose up to 70 congressional seats in this cycle. You say good, but if they get this thing passed through, then it's Katie bar the door. And the only way that stops is if you have strong leadership at the state level that pushes back. There's a thing called constitutional nullification that even here in the state of Texas we're not using. Because when you come down and you say this is what you must do by edict, order, mandate, decree, you just say, sorry, dude. If it's not in the Constitution, it wasn't passed by law, if we did not have our designated representatives in the House of Representatives or the Senate pass this, we're not doing it in the state of Texas. That's the resolve that you have to have. You have to have someone that has a resolve that stands on the board and says, you're not coming across the Rio Grande into the state of Texas. If you come across, we're going to do DNA testing. We're going to figure out, is that a family unit? Is it not a family unit? Then we're going to put you in the database and we're going to send you back. Because if you want to come into the United States of America through Texas, there's a front door. Not going to front door. But if you try to come through the back door, you're going to get kicked out the backyard. Okay? We're not going to have these terrorist organizations firing across the Rio Grande River into the state of Texas, which happens just about every single day. Anyone that understands international law, that's an act of war. But what are we telling our National Guard members? Oh, by the way, 5 suicides in the last 2 months. I mean, I was in combat 10,000 miles away from here. I never had a suicide by unit. We were waking up every single day dealing with Taliban, Al-Qaeda, ISIS, whomever. But here we have Texans in their own state, and they're committing suicide. That should not be happening. Why is it happening? Because they don't understand their mission. They don't understand their task and purpose. They're being told that if someone shoots at you, you can't shoot back. I don't know how many people here have ever been in a firefight. But when you've been on the receiving end of an AK-47, a PKM, or an RPG, you don't sit there and say, what do I do? You bring hell down upon the people that shot at you. And that's what we're going to do here in the state of Texas. We got to stop the magnets that attract people to come here illegally. We should not have in-state tuition for people that are here illegally. We should not have taxpayer-funded benefits for people that are here illegally. One of the things that they do just up the road in the state of Oklahoma, they tax remittances of illegals at 1%. You know, all that money that they send back to Western Union, to Mexico, Honduras, Nicaragua, El Salvador, Guatemala. I think Texas, we got it 10 times better than Oklahoma. So let's tax it at 10%. Let's take that remittance. You know, by the way, as long as the federal government refuses to do their job in the guarantee clause, then those tax remittances that the state of Texas sends back to the federal government, we're going to say, this is what it costs to do your job. And we're going to take that out of the tax remittances that we send back to you. That's what you have to do. And that's why you need strong leadership that does it. This is not a time for people to write letters. This is not a time for people to say, I'm suing you. You know, if I'm in battle, and bad guys shoot at me, I'm not going to say, please, let me go over and talk to the Taliban leader and let him know that I'm going to sue him for shooting at me. They don't respect that. There are people in the world that don't respect 2 things: strength and might. And right now, the Lone Star State is not exuding strength and might.
That's right. But
the United States of America and the free world needs the Lone Star State to exude strength and might. So let me close and now I'll take your questions. I don't know, you can ask me about property tax, you can ask me about the grid, you can ask me about critical race theory, cultural Marxism, social and emotional learning, all of those things. But the number one thing, if we don't fix what's happening on our border, Katie bar the door, none of that other stuff will matter, because you won't have the state of Texas. It's just a matter of time. If we don't have people that will stand up and push back against the onerous and intrusive nature of this federal government, which if you read the entire Declaration of Independence, the same grievances that Thomas Jefferson listed are the same grievances that we see right now.
That's right.
That's how critical this time is. You know, David talked about it. As the chairman of the Republican Party of Texas, you can go out and you can advocate for those legislative priorities that you decide that you want your legislators to get passed. Joe Glover was the chairman of the Legislative Priorities Committee for the Republican Party in Texas. And we had the door slammed in our face. So sometimes you can advocate for something, or you can do what Alexander the Great did at the Battle of Gallipoli against Darius, the king of Persia. When he said, the only way that we can defeat the Persians is for me to lead the cavalry charge and go right after Darius. And if you study that battle, Alexander led the cavalry charge that went directly after the king of Persia. And when the king of Persia fled the battlefield, the rest of the Persian army dissipated. And a smaller force of those Macedonians defeated a greater force of the Persians on that day. So sometimes you got to step down in order to step up to go after the head. And that's what I'm doing now. Because no elected official has the enumerated power to decide who or what is essential. Mm-hmm. No elected official in the state of Texas should be able, no governor, to say even what the Texas State Constitution says, after 30 days you're supposed to bring it to the legislature, even in an emergency. Yet he didn't. And what did he do? He extended early voting from 2 weeks to 3 weeks. Unconstitutional. He made all these different mandates, edicts, orders, and decrees. He took away from you the things that he had no constitutional right to take away from you. And then he patted himself on the back like he was a big hero and said, I'm giving it back to you. If you've ever read the essay by a French economist by the name of Frederick Bastiat, written back in the 1850s, he talked about the role and relationship of the individual to the institution of government. And he talked about how sometimes the government is like a window maker. The window maker that goes out during the night and smashes the windows. Then the following day he shows up and says, I'm here to repair your windows. That's what has happened in the state of Texas. Your rights, your freedoms, your liberties were smashed. And now someone wants to come back around and say, let me come back around and fix what I already smashed. This is your moment. It starts the 14th of February. What you do in this moment in history will echo for eternity. No different than what William Barrett Travis did, Sam Houston, David Crockett, all of those folks that charged the battlefield on 21 April of 1836 at San Jacinto. And in 18 minutes, 725 defeated 1,400 so that you can be sitting here today in the great state of Texas. What will the history books say about you in this moment and in this time? God bless you all. What are your questions? Master Chief Petty Officer. Yes.
All of you. Article 1, Section 8. How many things is the federal government allowed to do? Specify. 18. Before.
How many folks here got their own little constitution? Come on, let's see. Let me see. Let me see. I mean, we got this is your American Express credit card. This is something that you cannot leave home without. You know, the Bible says that you should study to show thyself approved. It also says, my people suffer for lack of knowledge. This is where we are today. If we don't realize, restore, and understand that the Constitution is a limiting document on the powers of the federal government, the Constitution is an empowering document for the states in this constitutional republic. It's not really, you know, this is paratrooper reading. It's not really that bad. Like I said, I went with the C-17. See, I was smart enough to fly no doggone airplane. But the line and the training for airborne school is pretty easy. If you could determine that a red light meant that you stopped, and a green light meant that you could go, you could be a paratrooper. All right,
See, you young guys can read that small stuff. 83-year-old guys.
all right, move next. Yes, sir.
Ken, I had a question before that one was even brought up. I mean, we can talk about the 10th Amendment, we can talk about Section 1. But there's the reality that we're so unmoored from the Constitution that we require the states to fight.
Correct.
I'm sorry?
Correct.
So, I know what they're not supposed to do, but what are we going to do ourselves?
You nullify everything that comes down that's not constitutional. As a matter of fact, when you look at what is going on at the border, when you have all that wall material at the border, not in the United States House of Representatives, when you appropriate for something, that's law. So you cannot come back and say, by executive order, we're going to stop building the wall. If you want to stop it, you've got to go back and you've got to, again, create a law that amends that previous law or rescinds that previous law. And so all we have to do is say, sorry, you can't do that. Supremacy clause in the United States Constitution, very important clause, because everyone will come to you and say, yeah, you can say all this stuff, but the federal government is supreme over states. Not so fast, my friend. There are two very important words in the Supremacy clause, pursuant thereof. When the federal government is doing the things that are pursuant thereof to the Constitution, to our rule of law, they are supreme over the states. When they're not, constitutional nullification, which has already been passed in several states in the United States of America, has not been passed in Texas.
But it's all just ignored. I mean, the federal government just ignored it. We just do it like with the OSHA requirements. They got slapped down by the courts, and they just kept pushing it the next day. Just went back the next day.
Yeah, but it lies in there that in Georgia and Florida, they called special sessions, and they passed a law that says that you cannot do that. And we've been begging our governor here to have a special session to pass a law that says that you cannot have vaccine mandates.
How do you fight the money? Everything's got a hook from the federal government. If you take money here, now you're opening up for vaccine mandates, you're opening up for all these things. That seems to be where the evil's coming in. How do you fight that when budgets are strict? Look at our school boards. Everything's written about money. You take the money, now you have all these policies you have to follow.
Well, I think it's so important that we refuse to take that. I mean, again, you have to have a strong leader at the state level that sits down and looks at these things that are coming out, unfunded mandates and liabilities that come down from the federal government, and say, no, we're not going to accept these things. We're not going to put an undue tax burden on us. Again, you go back and you look at the 18 some odd things in Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution that the federal government is supposed to be doing, and you just got to challenge them. We have got to get back to challenging the federal government and not just leaning over and saying, yeah, okay, you got us. And the other thing, like I said, we have the powers to say to the federal government, you're not doing what the Constitution says. And oh, by the way, Article 1, Section 10, Clause number 3, it says exactly what states can do when actually invaded, when there's imminent danger without any admitted delay. If you're the number one state in the United States of America for human and sex trafficking, I say that's an imminent danger. When you have a drug trafficking crisis, that's an imminent danger. When you have a public health crisis, that's an imminent danger. So the Constitution gives us its power. You know what it takes? It's just a simple word. Starts with a C.
Courage.
Courage. We have so many weak governors across the United States of America that won't stand up. And you can tell who are the strong governors that stand up because, as they say in the military, you only take flak when you're over the target. And so why do they continue to go after Ron DeSantis? Because he's doing what is right. He's pushing back against the federal government. You can send letters all you want. You can ask and beg for this and that, but it's not happening. And so you've got to be able to say no. And that's another reason why we got to end the taxpayer-funded lobby here in the state of Texas. How many people know about the Texas Association of School Boards? The Texas Association of School Boards is part of the National Association of School Boards. And what did the National Association of School Boards send a letter to Merrick Garland saying? We want you to declare these parents as domestic terrorists and showing up at school board meetings. And to this day, the Texas Association of School Boards has not disavowed themselves from the National Association of School Board. And you know what? The Texas Association of School Board is a taxpayer-funded lobbying organization. They ain't gonna be when I'm gone.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
I would, and you probably ask this all the time. What are you going to do the very first day you're in office? I want to hear
Very first
it.
day I'm in
Yeah.
office, we'll sign an executive order. I can do this as the government that declares cartels as a transnational narco-criminal terrorist organization. Therefore, we can go after any of their assets that you have in banks here. We freeze those assets, we seize those assets. We find we go and we can take your house because you're aiding and abetting terrorism in the state of Texas. That's going to be a felony offense. And, you know, if you're a guy out there doing it, tell your wife you're going to be homeless. Okay? That's the level of pain that they have to understand.
Yeah.
And we, for whatever reason, I don't know, to this point, we have never done that. In Afghanistan, the Taliban use opium. That's how they fuel their efforts. The cartels are using fentanyl, methamphetamine, heroin, cocaine, and marijuana. And then the other thing they're using, $25 to $30 million a week on human trafficking.
Wow.
And we're sitting around rolling on it now. All we gotta do is revoke the licenses of these 501c3 organizations.
Yeah.
And that ends it. So those are the number one thing I'm gonna do, because the number one thing I gotta do is send a message to these folks. Texas is closed for business for you folks.
Amen.
Oh, man. Amen.
I am scanning, look at the target scanning. Nobody? Hey, look, oh, yes, ma'am.
What do you do to address and shut down the CRT?
What do you do to address and shut down CRT? Don't call it CRT. First of all, it's cultural Marxism. Because if you know, initially it started out as the Cultural Competency Action Plan over in South Lake Carroll ISD. So the left is very adept at changing the name that they give to something, but it's still the exact same thing. So it's cultural Marxism. You know, we cannot have a country, we cannot have, you know, school systems to say, just because of your skin color, you're evil, and you're an oppressor. And because of my skin color, I'm oppressed, and I'm a victim. That's not how we educate our kids. That's how we get our kids to be victims instead of being victims. So I will tell you right now, if there's an independent school district out there that wants to try to teach and indoctrinate cultural Marxism, they ain't gonna get your taxpayer money. And furthermore, these colleges and universities out there become the next little mills for little socialists and little Marxists. We're not going to send our taxpayer money to these state universities and colleges. Y'all got a problem up here. The University of North Texas.
That's right.
Those little
That's right.
radicals, you know, y'all need to take them out behind the woodshed and give them spanking. And that's how they end up flipping the city of Denton and the county, because those kids, those professors come in.
That's right.
So I will tell you right now, I would not be appointing any progressive socialists to the Texas State Board of Regents. I want you to remember this. We live in a constitutional republic where we have three branches of government. And they are
Judicial.
you
Yeah.
passed schoolhouse wrong. Separation of powers, checks and balances, co-equal branches of government. The left does not believe in the three branches of government. The left believes in the three branches of rule. And what are the three branches of rule? Media, academia, and the courts. Do you know that the governor of the state of Texas, by the Texas State Constitution, can start impeachment actions against state judges? We're down in Harris County, well, not Harris County, we're down in Montgomery County, but of course Harris County is just south of there. Do you know that there are 155 people in Harris County that have been murdered by violent felons the state judges in Harris County released? And the governor has the ability to have them impeached. And have. What did the Texas Criminal Court of Appeals, all Republicans, the Texas Criminal Court of Appeals, what did they just decide? That the Attorney General no longer has the jurisdiction to prosecute voter fraud cases in the state of Texas. That is left up to the district attorney to do that. Well, if you weren't paying attention in 2018, George Soros came in here and funded district attorney races in Dallas County, Travis County, Barrett County, and Harris County. That's just so happens to be the four largest population counties in the state of Texas.
Texas, yeah.
So why do we do that to our citizens? Why is it the Republicans, for whatever reason, love to bring a plastic spoon to a gunfight? See, that's what we got to stop. And that's why you got the opportunity to pick some courageous people to go into the arena and do the battle for you. But when you send them into the arena, you got to make sure that they are resourced properly. Don't send people into the arena without a sword, a spear, a shield, a helmet, nothing. But that's what we do. And then we thump our chest and say, well, we ran someone against, that incumbent. Or in some cases, some places I've been, down in Killeen, down in Seguin, I asked them, who's your state house member? They said so-and-so. I said, does your state house member deserve re-election? They all shout, no, he's terrible, he sucks. Do you have someone running against your state house member? No, we couldn't find it. I think someone said it earlier, sometimes you got the government that you want, other times you get the government that you deserve. That's why you got to step up. Yes, ma'am.
So we escaped California.
Good.
And we're new Texas residents, but we left because of the mandates.
Sure.
A whole lot more.
A whole lot more, but that was a big issue for us. I have zero faith in the Supreme Court at this point, and
A little compromise.
be a little compromise, and I just want to know that we're protected against these mandates here in Texas.
Well, again, what did you just say? A mandate. A mandate is not a law. So why do you even follow? I mean, you should just say, screw you.
Right.
But seriously, pass a law, and that's why we have representatives. Because if not, if we start to believe that edicts, orders, mandates, and decrees equal law, then we're no longer a constitutional republic, we're a constitutional monarchy. That's what I'm telling you, that's the most important issue for us. Property tax is important. The grid is important. But us understanding the nature of what we live in is so critical for us. And let me tell you something. There are two different types of people that live in California, Illinois, New York, and New Jersey. There are individuals that are making the decision that I have enough, and they're getting out of it. But the problem that we have in red states is that we have governors that are going to these failed blue states and talking to business leaders and corporate leaders and CEOs and saying, move your corporation here. We got all these great things so that I can say, look at all the jobs, look at all the corporations that are coming here, whatever. But they bring that employment base, and that employment base is not happy. They were happy where they were. The only corporate CEO that has chewed out his employment base was Elon Musk.
That's right.
If you weren't paying attention, he tweeted out and he said, you all came here to Texas not as disciples, but as refugees. And when Proposition A, remember the proposition in Austin, Texas, to refund the police? When that proposition failed, he was livid with the people in Austin. Because he said, Austin is on its way to becoming the next San Francisco. So what I need you to do is when you have the folks that are moving into your neighborhoods and communities, you see that U-Haul van come up, you gotta engage them. You gotta talk to them. You can do it with a smile. You can take over, like I said, take over pecan pie. I'm sorry. You're on the other side. And I'll say, come on. Like your friends. But you take them some nice little sweets or something like that. Then you say, welcome to Texas. You look at them, eyeball to eyeball, and say, why are you here? And after you say, why are you here? Start sharing Texas history. Texas is the only state in the United States of America that has its own Declaration of Independence. A lot of folks moving here don't know that. How many of y'all have taken some of those new Texans, San Antonio to the Alamo? And let them see what 183 stood against 3,000 for 13 days. How many of y'all have ever taken some of these new Texans down to San Jacinto? We're in 18 minutes. From 4:30 to 4:48. The state of Texas secured its independence. How many of y'all have ever taken some of these new Texans down to La Bahia? How many of y'all know what La Bahia is? La Bahia is the place where Colonel James' family, his soldiers were massacred by Santa Ana. When they charged that battlefield, they shouted, remember the Alamo, remember La Bahia. March the 1st is what? Primary Day. What's the next day after that?
Texas Independence Day.
I know, so smart ass. It's 2nd March. I know. See, that's why when I get to heaven, I'm gonna slap Adam. You don't have to listen to Eve. I'm just gonna be running around in the garden of Eden, not paying taxes, just chilling out there. Okay? The 2nd of March, Texas Independence Day. How many people here have ever been to Washington on the Brazos? Every Texan needs to go to Washington on the Brazos. That's where 61 men got together in a little open building, open with it, no windows, no doors, on cold March day, and birthed the Republic of Texas. See, if you don't know what makes Texas special, then someone will come in and they'll defile your house. That's what I want you to start thinking about as we go forward. The reason why we fight. All right, last question. Bueller. Hey, look. I always like to remind people of a saying from Mark Twain. Mark Twain said there are 2 most important days in your life. It's the day that you're born and the day that you find out why. Everybody here knows that first one. The question is, do you know the second? And if you come to understand the second, then Texas, this great state, this great republic will be restored, and it will be the lone star that illuminates the other 49 on the United States flag. But if you don't find out what that second most important day in your life is, then the history books may write a different story for us. But don't worry, I ain't gonna let that happen.